Hello, everybody. How's it all going on this beautiful Wednesday? If you're in Melbourne, I'm sure you're enjoying the gorgeous weather. I spent half the day just enjoying some of that time with my son, thankfully on the beach. So, yeah, really grateful for that. I'm just about to check that we are live everywhere. If you are joining, we are joining for episode 15 of FemGineer Chats. And the topic for today is circular donuts and the economy. So stay tuned to figure out what it's all about. And just bear with me 1 minute. Here we go. We are live. We're good to go. So thank you all for joining me. So as I said today, I want to talk about the economy and what it has to do with sustainability. I'm not an economist, but I'm going to do my best to not butcher the terms and really just try to explain to you in as simply as possible kind of how our economy is really going through major shifts at the moment, shifting towards a term that many of you have heard, a circular economy, and also what's a donut economy. We'll get into all of that very soon. So traditionally, our economy has been linear, and that really came from the Industrial Revolution. And what a linear economy is about is really taking, making something and disposing of it. So how do we draw out the raw materials, then transform it into a product, and then discard it into landfill? So this type of economic system builds value through more production and selling as many products as possible, with no kind of view on where those products end up. So really what we've traditionally done is taken them and dispose of them in a landfill. And as far as waste management goes, we've separated out our waste, and more recently, and probably the last century, embraced the idea of recycling some of those wastes. A fun fact here, actually, the first sort of idea around recycling probably came about in the 9th century. So the ancient Japanese, started to recycle their paper essentially as soon as they learnt how to produce it in the first place. And so therefore recycling became a very important part of paper production and consumption. But really mainstream recycling only came about probably in the last century or so. And even now, if a lot of you are in Australia or Melbourne, actually really all of Australia would know, especially once China said no to taking our recycling waste, recycling really became an issue for us, and it's still not really done very well. We often find organic waste in the inorganic recycling materials, so often a problem for waste separation, and really that whole process has not been captured well. So we're still working through how to even really run a linear economy properly. And the fact that a linear economy is detrimental to our environment makes the entire problem quite big. So this is when economists started to join the conversation and say, well, we really need to be part of this conversation on how we continue to run our nations, and globally how we interact with each other. So to kind of delve into that, we really need to understand a couple of terms. There's the microeconomics and there's the macroeconomics. So the two systems play a really important role in the overall economy of our nations and globally how we interact. Because in microeconomics, that's about people and individuals and how businesses make their decisions, while the microeconomics are really about the countrywide decisions and how the governments develop policies. So, microeconomics will look at supply, demand, and sort of other forces that will determine the price of their product. So it's really a bottom-up approach, whereas the macroeconomics is a top-down approach. It's the economy as a whole, and how does that economy exist in nature, and investors will more look at microeconomic factors, while the governments will look at the macroeconomics and use that as a tool to craft their economic policies and their official policies. So the two are really separate but important in understanding and how they play together. And so the reason I wanted to define the two is because the circular economy is, when I get into that, explain what a circular economy is, it's very much a microeconomic tool. And the Doughnut economy is now a more recently developed concept, which is a macro tool. So let's get into it, what these two tools are. And just to sort of help with understanding the two differences, I am going to just share my screen. So just bear with me. And you should be able to see my screen now. So let's bring these up. I'm going to bring up both models, but we will keep the circular economy model ahead so that you can see that first, because we'll get into that. So the circular economy model was developed by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and really it's a systemic approach to look at a more regenerative economy. So where our resources are not just sent to the landfill or to waste, they're actually repurposed and reused and brought back into the economy. So it's really designed around the three pillars of sustainability, which is business, society, the environment. And so really in contrast to the linear economy model, as I said, the circular economy is regenerative and it looks at designing out waste, and it aims to really decouple economic growth from the consumption of really what is finite in the amount of resources that we have. So the purpose of our circular economy is to preserve and enhance natural capital, to optimize resources and the yields that we get out of production, and finally to foster overall system effectiveness. And how they do that through a circular economy is to design out waste. So waste is no longer part of our system, and really it's all resources. Everything is seen as a resource. Increasing resource efficiency, so the resources that we do have, how do we improve the efficiency of producing it, using less to produce the same viable product? And finally, how do we achieve a better balance between the economy, the environment, and society? Again, those three pillars. And so, as I said, the circular economy works really beautifully on its own, but it's very much a micro tool. It's looking at individuals, it's looking at businesses, and how individuals and businesses can make decisions more at a localized level, and then therefore how do they define production chains, and how do they define growth of certain products or goods, basically consumer goods. So that model on its own is really great and has been around for a while now. But more recently, Kate Raworth, who is an Oxford University associate, she came out with the Doughnut Economy. And the reason she came up with this model is that this is more of a macro view on how we should be looking at our economy. So I'm going to bring this image forward so that you can see this now. So this is a really great tool, and what we need to understand about this tool is it's a macro view. So it's an overall view of not just how us at a local or even national level will operate, but really how globally we're all going to work together to make this model the way that the world operates. So the hole in the middle of the donut, that represents the portion of people that are lacking access to very essential things like housing, food, water, healthcare, education. And then you've got the outside, the crust of the donut, and that is where we're overshooting our ecological barriers, which is really how a lot of the Western world currently exists with nature. So once we overshoot those ecological barriers and truly overshoot them, we've already seen some of the biodiversity loss issues, but we will continue to see extreme biodiversity loss and extreme climate change, which is a product of this excessive growth model that we've been following for so long, which is the linear economy. So that's what the outside of the donut looks like. So really what we want to get to is the sweet donut itself, the inside. And that's where humanity can really exist in a safe, coexisting space. This part of the donut really represents that perfect balance between humanity and where everyone's social needs are met. There's no exploitation and there's no overuse of our planet's resources. And this model, the difference between this and the circular economy, which the circular economy is a lot about regeneration. So you can see in the circular economy, it looks at, how do we bring all of these resources back around, while the donut economy is both about that regeneration as well as the distribution. So distributing the wealth really kind of in a social sense to those who don't have as much as the rest of us. So the circular donut of economies, it's the combination of the two. You've got the circular economy, the micro model, the donut economy, the macro model, and bringing that together can really take us into the new age of economy, the new economy that we all want to shift towards. And so in order to do that, at a business level, it's probably more obvious. You can start to look at things like overall efficiency of your operations in terms of energy, water, waste, resources. And when I say waste and resources, really the two are together. We're understanding that very clearly now, that waste is no longer just waste. It's actually a resource. So looking at all those things and how do we reduce that and optimize our operations and reuse our waste streams, or at least if we can't reuse them, pass them on to another business or another entity that can use that waste as a resource. So that's really kind of clear at a business level, but at a governmental level, it is obviously a lot more complex. And so it's going to be interesting to see which governments start to embrace this new idea. I really like Kate Raworth, who developed the Doughnut Economy, her quote, and that is, "What if economics didn't start with money, but with human well-being?" Which I think is really beautiful, because that is the way that we're shifting towards a more conscious, mindful existence, not just with each other, not just with ourselves and with each other, but also with nature and the environment. And so really one of the first countries to embrace this idea, and it'll be a really interesting benchmark that they set, is Amsterdam, who at the start of this year, they launched the city donut. So that's going to be the tool of how the city will embody all of these principles of the donut economy, and then obviously at a micro level, start to run practices that support the circular economy of existence. So this framework that Amsterdam have come out with are really going to look at 4 kind of scenarios. And one is, how will they thrive? 2, how will they thrive within their natural habitat? 3, how will they respect the well-being of the people worldwide? And finally, how will they respect the health of the entire planet? So they've really looked at all 4 scenarios. They're not separate scenarios, but all 4 levels of existence to understand what it means to coexist in a great little sweet spot within the donut economy. So really exciting to see Amsterdam and the Dutch really embrace this idea. And I think that this will start to definitely play out into a lot of our economic models. And so it'll really start to shift the way that we use products and also waste products, and no longer be just a direct wasteland, but also a re-resourcing of waste streams, which will be exactly what we need if we want to kind of prevent that overshooting of those ecological barriers. Because really, once we overshoot those ecological barriers, and we've already seen this, we've seen the extinction of animals even within the last few generations, which is very rapid in terms of natural existence. We've seen that, that extinction takes many years, but we've managed to rapidly speed that up. So, once we start to embrace something like a donut economy / circular economy, we will really be able to try to suppress that overshooting of those barriers and take off some of that pressure, really. So it's really exciting times, to be honest. And I think that, businesses that are putting sustainability and putting these ideas of reaching, zero carbon or waste to landfill on the back burner are really going to fall back, because in this new economy, as we start to rapidly shift, which I can say I feel comfortable in saying that, in the next year or two, it's going to rapidly change globally. And so if there are companies that are not embracing these sorts of ideas, they're going to very quickly become irrelevant in this space, because they're not going to be part of the exact new economy that we all need in order to continue existing as a species on this planet. So yeah, it's really interesting times, I think, to see what happens and the businesses that pivot. I've seen businesses already pivot through this space, and COVID, they used it not as an opportunity just to pivot through COVID, but they used it as an opportunity to pivot through climate change, because they could see the connection between COVID and climate change, which I've spoken about in my past episodes. So I think that, I find it a really fascinating time, and I really hope to see more and more businesses start to embrace this way of thinking and start to reach out to people who can help them through this space, and really look at collaborative opportunities to make this a reality, to make this more circular donut economy the reality and the norm. Really interesting topic. I find it fascinating. And, I'll share Kate Raworth's site, as well as the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's website. So that way, you have an opportunity to check out these wonderful resources. So I hope that this has been useful. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them across. Just send me a direct message. Would love to hear from you, and hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.